Welcome to Climate Change with Scott Amyx. I'm your host, Scott, and today I'm joined by Dimitri Periclita, who is a Toronto-based architect and founder of One Piece a Day. Welcome.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast series.
Being that you're an architect, can you talk a little bit about how architecture intersects with environmentalism?
Architecture and the environment are intrinsically connected. So, as architects, we try to design buildings that are purpose-driven, that are also ideally, environmentally friendly and socially conscious. There's been a lot of data also in recent years that has come to the surface relating architecture to and construction to climate change. So, for instance, about 39% of all global greenhouse gas emissions come from construction. About 40% of all energy use is related to buildings. So as architects, we really need to take this on and take on that responsibility to work for a sustainable future.
So as an architect, why not focus on design and implementation? Why focus on litter?
So we're actually doing both. So a lot of our projects, we try to implement as many green initiatives as we can. So for instance, we've had several corporate clients and even retail clients that have reached out to us and said, look, how can you help us reduce our carbon footprint? We're also doing in the residential sector, we have a few projects, including a house we're doing, which is off-grid. So all the water is coming from a well in the earth. We're harvesting rainwater for irrigation. There's solar panels, there's septic. So it's very interesting.
For today's focus, it's going to be on single-use plastic. Why are you so passionate about that?
So, years ago, I went for a run on a beach in Mexico. So my wife and I took our kids for a family holiday. And I'm a long-distance runner, so I took my running shoes, went out for a run on the beach in the morning. And I'd never seen anything like it. I encountered so much litter on this beautiful beach. There's the Maya Riviera. You look to one side and it's gorgeous, beautiful Caribbean Sea. And when you look down, I was literally stepping on plastic with almost every step that I was taking. And I started picking up litter. I filled up a few handfuls. I saw some buckets. I filled those up. I saw big contractors' garbage bag. I filled up 4 of those bags within about half hour to 40 minutes. And I just remember standing at the point I had to turn around, run back to my hotel. And it was almost like someone had punched me in the head. I couldn't move. I just remember staring up the entire north coast of Mexico and just thinking to myself, number one, I didn't really understand what I had walked into or ran into. The problem was much bigger than me. For every piece of litter I picked up, and I probably picked up maybe 500 or more pieces, I was leaving thousands of pieces of litter behind. And all the way back to my hotel, I kept running and taking photographs of the litter. And then it hit me. So I just thought, what if we could use this technology that's sitting in 2.4 billion people's pockets and create an app that would encourage everyone to do something as simple as pick up 1 piece of litter a day. If we could do that, then we'd really have a chance of tackling this problem. And that's how I became impassioned by this mission.
For those that are asking the question, why don't we try to minimize the use of single-use plastic? What would you say in terms of kind of the initial of the life cycle versus what the residual things that are lying around on beaches and oceans and so forth?
So numbers and statistics, and the key ones that I always keep going back to, one comes from a Forbes article that was published a couple years ago, and it stated that every minute 1 million plastic bottles are being sold around the world, and that 91% of that is not recycled. And a second key article for us was a World Economic Forum article from 2016, which stated that 32% of all plastic packaging created annually ends up in the oceans every single year, one way or another, and that was the equivalent of dumping 1 garbage truck full of plastic into the ocean every single minute. And given that 91% of plastics are not recycled, what has happened is the creation of this global crisis. So now we have 6 plastic gyres floating in the oceans, the most famous one, of course, being the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which, according to most recent estimates, is measure that over 1.8 trillion pieces of litter, that's mainly plastic, floating between California and Hawaii. It's almost 3 times the size of the country of France. And, the issue is that the impact that this is having on the seas and their inhabitants is profound. So every year, 1 million seabirds are dying from plastic ingestion. We know that 100,000 whales and dolphins and turtles are dying every year from either ingestion of plastic or entanglement. So the issue is is very serious, and it's worthwhile for us to take stock of our behavior in relation to single-use plastic.
Yeah, I think it's projected that in several decades that there will be actually more plastic than fish in the ocean. And it's quite unfathomable for us to put it in that context, that scale. Again, I come back to not just in terms of cleanup, and there's some novel techniques that's being employed right now in terms of collecting plastic in the ocean. But why not consider taxation to the manufacturers, the CPGs that are actually producing this waste in the first place?
Excellent point. So yes, absolutely. So taxation on manufacturers. In fact, we're also pursuing our work with governments. We're in Canada, so we've been reaching out to the Canadian government to actually encourage bans on single-use plastic. And our work has been kind of grassroots from the bottom up, but we're also working with the government from the top down.
Let's get back into the One Piece a Day app.
Okay.
What exactly is it doing, and what's the user experience like?
So the One Piece a Day app is very simply, it's a counter. So you take a picture of litter you might encounter, you punch in the number of pieces, and you hit save. But we also have a litter categories function for the app, because when we've worked alongside groups like Greenpeace Canada, they like to categorize by, whether it's a plastic bag or Coke can or whatever. So they like to categorize the litter. But unfortunately, groups like that are still using pencil and paper and clipboard. So what our app is trying to do is to bring that process of auditing into the 21st century. So one of the nice things about the app is that you can actually, there's 2 counters. There's your own personal contribution and the human count, so humanity's contribution, and you can actually see your impact on the global numbers, which is really great. So you can see that you're actually making a difference. Every piece that you've picked up is contributing to the global number. We find that the app is actually a great motivator in that, we have a leaderboard. You can see your contribution or your organization. So we actually have a lot of schools. We're actually getting involved with corporations now who are taking this on almost as a corporate challenge for part of their social and environmental stewardship and responsibility programs. So there's one corporation that we're working with right now who has offices around the world. So we're trying to help them set up an inter-office challenge to see which office can collect the most litter for a set day, perhaps next year on Earth Day or something like that. So it's really interesting. So I think, yes, maybe in the past there was more of a stigma, but I think now people are realizing that the global litter and plastic pollution problem is not just about, picking up a Coke can. It's that really litter and plastic pollution are having a very deep and profound impact on the planet. And it's up to all of us to have a hand in fixing that.
Perfect. So on that note, I've been joined by Dimitri Periclita, who is a founder of the One Piece a Day app. Thank you for joining, and thanks for doing your part to help with climate change action.
Thank you so much, Scott.